So for our first recipe, we are making taco lasagna, and you will need some flour, tortillas, taco seasoning, heavy whipping cream, ground beef, and some pico de gallo or homemade salsa or even rotel tomatoes, and some cheese and butter, of course. So we're just going in and we're going to ground this ground beef, of course. And then once it's drained, we're going to go in with a whole pack of taco seasoning. And I believe since I had 2 pounds, I went back in and added another half a packet of seasoning just to give it a little bit more flavor. While that's cooking, we are going to start on our cheese mix. And we will start off with about 4 tablespoons of butter. And you want to get this butter all the way melted down. In the meantime, I am cutting my tortillas in half, and I realized I didn't need to cut all of them in half. You probably could have done maybe like 5 or 6. So once my butter's all melted, we're going to go in with our heavy whipping cream, and I believe I used about 2 cups of heavy whipping cream, and you want to make sure that you get that nice and blended all the way through. And then you will add in the cheese. I believe that was 3 cups of cheese. And so this is going to take some time to melt all together. Even when you get this consistency, you still want to keep mixing it. I went ahead and switched from a whisk just to like a regular spatula. And you'll notice how the color kind of changes once it gets all the way mixed really well. I forgot to mention this, but I did add in some Cajun seasoning to give this a little bit more of a spice. So after you've got a nice consistency with the cheese mix, we're going to set that aside and start layering our taco lasagna. So of course I sprayed my pan down with nonstick spray, and then I took some time to figure out how to layer this these shells, these tortillas down. And I could have definitely used more, but I figured that that worked just fine. Keep in mind that once you cook these, they do get a little chewy, so you don't want to use too many tortillas. And then I went in with my taco meat, and I just used about a third of it. You don't want to use all of it, obviously, because you want to make about 2 more layers in addition to this. Then we will add in our cheese mix. This cheese mix was so good, guys. This really is what made this taco lasagna taste so good. And then I went ahead and added the pico de gallo. I think you could also use the rotel tomatoes for chili, like I stated earlier, or even just like a light bit of salsa instead of the pico de gallo, or even your homemade. So good. So then we're going to go ahead and repeat the steps 2 more times, and then we're going to put it in our oven that is preheated to 400 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. And seriously, this is so good. If you make any of these recipes, I definitely recommend this one. Everyone loved it. Okay, so for our next recipe, we are going to be making some curry chicken. So you will need some boneless, skinless chicken thighs, but you could also use drumsticks, curry powder, of course, salt, pepper, garlic powder. I use a little bit of garlic as well, onion, butter, green peppers, tomatoes, and we paired this with some rice. So you want to start off with cutting all of your vegetables. So cutting the peppers and the tomatoes and the onions. And you want to dice them, but it doesn't have to be perfect because this is really just for the flavor. They'll all be cooked down. Obviously, you just don't want them to be too big. So I just took a second to add some curry to our chicken thighs. I went ahead with some kitchen scissors and just cut the chicken thighs up, and then just try my best to add the seasoning all around, but you'll see later I obviously didn't get curry on all of the chicken. So we're gonna go in with some butter and get that nice and melted, and then you're gonna go in with your peppers and onion, and then I added a little bit of minced garlic, and I also put some curry seasoning on the onions and peppers as well. And so you want this to get nice and brown before you go ahead and add in your meat. So once that's nice and browned, we're gonna go ahead and add in our chicken. And then of course add in a little bit more curry powder. And then I just add in a little bit, like a few tablespoons of water, just so that the chicken doesn't stick to the pan. The last time I made this, I added too much water and you could tell it was definitely a little watered down. So you might be fine with not adding any water at all, but that's just what I do. And then some salt and the garlic powder, pepper if you want. And then we're going to give that a good mix, and then we're going to put the lid on. And I usually have this cook for about 30 to 45 minutes. You just have to kind of eye it because the chicken breast or the chicken thighs won't take as long as the drumsticks. I do put the lid on it though, and you'll notice that when you check on it, there will be more water, like right here. And then this is what our rice was looking like. And this was my husband's plate, and yes, he ate all of it. And curry is just a must in our house. So now I am making meatloaf, and we just have ketchup, mustard, an egg. I used almost 2.5 pounds of ground beef, garlic, chili powder, panko breadcrumbs, an onion, light brown sugar, and barbecue sauce. And so for our sides, we had tomatoes or potatoes and green beans. So I diced my onion, and then I went ahead and just whisked this egg together and put it off to the side. So then we're going to start making our meatloaf mixture, and I have some ground beef, obviously, and then we added in the onion, some barbecue sauce, and the recipe called for Dijon mustard, but I don't have that and I don't necessarily care for it, so I just used regular and it turned out just fine. And then I believe that this is a cup of the panko breadcrumbs, and then we went in with that egg. If I had gloves, I would have hand mixed this meat, but this is why I'm using a spatula. And so you just want to mix that in really well and then add more seasoning as needed. As you can see here, I added way too much chili powder, so I had to take some meat out, and then some salt, and then our garlic powder. And then after mixing that up nice and well, I used a muffin tin, and I just went ahead and added the meatloaf into these little muffin tins, and you'll see later that I had to go in with another pan because I didn't have enough room for all of the meatloaf. And then after I added what I had left over, it wasn't enough, so I took the 4 ones out of the middle, and so we had a nice pan of meatloaf, and then we had the little mini meatloafs for the kids, which I thought was a cute little idea, and it was fun for our family. So then you will cover your meatloafs with some aluminum foil, and you'll cook them for about 20 to 25 minutes. Obviously, the bigger pan will need to be cooked a little bit longer. And then you will take it out and add in this mixture that we're about to add in, and then put it back in for another 10 to 15 minutes. So the mixture just calls for some ketchup and brown sugar. And I believe I added in some mustard as well. And then you'll just give that a nice mix and set it aside until you're ready to add it on to your meatloaf. I don't think I said, but we will cook it at about 400 degrees. And so this is what they looked like. I patted off some of the grease, but you don't have to. And then you'll add in that meatloaf mixture on the top, and then put those back in the oven uncovered this time. So for our last recipe, we're going to be making some chicken parm. You're going to need some boneless, skinless chicken breast, some eggs, milk, Italian breadcrumbs, marinara sauce, spaghetti, and I used some corn as a side. So I just went ahead and I used frozen. You don't always have to use fresh. Sometimes it's just unrealistic as a family, and so I defrosted that. And then once they were defrosted, I went ahead and cut them up, and then you'll see I put them in a bag and flattened them out a little bit because they were really thick. Like that one is just a little too thick. That one's fine. I know that they have like meat hammers, if that's what they're called, but I just went in with the top of a screwdriver because that's all that I had. And you're just gonna hit that and flatten that out a little bit, and that's just gonna help it to cook a little bit better and then not be so chewy. So then I put the breadcrumbs in a bag, and you'll just go back and put the meat in the egg and milk mixture, then in the breadcrumbs, and then you'll do that again. So back in the milk and egg mixture, and then back in the breadcrumbs until they're all covered. And then I preheated my oven already to about 370 degrees. You want to go ahead and get started on cooking your spaghetti noodles. And then I have my grease going. You can kind of see that it's really nice and hot. And then you're just going to go ahead and start cooking your chicken. So in my pan, I just put a little bit of pasta sauce at the bottom, and then I added in my chicken breast, and then added in some more sauce on top of it. And then you'll add your cheese on the top of this as well. And you'll see that I have another pan that's off to the side with just one chicken in there, one piece of chicken in there, and that's because my son does not like pasta sauce, so I put that off to the side for him and just didn't put any sauce on it and just put some cheese on it. And then you'll put those in the oven at 375. I said 370 earlier, but it's 375 for about 15 minutes. And this is what they look like. So good. And this was the finished product. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in our next one. Bye.